Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, I think I could see here that the initial reference from CAP has come as saying you would want some sort of review of your mental health and looking at the diagnosis and what would be the treatment. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, just maybe if we could start with what you think are the difficulties that you face from day to day, or
Difficulties.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I have notes here that I'm going to be referring to. My mother suicided when I was 4 years old.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
My father suicided about 8 years ago now. I went into care homes for 5 years after the death of my mother.
So from 4 till 9.
Yeah. Then I was expelled from every school I ever went to because I evidently had issues. As a result of that, I'm very distrusting to human beings. I've become very reclusive. I've been a recluse now for 12 years. I'm asocial. And have very little interest in the human being. I'm an obsessive acquirer of knowledge. I have OCD. I feel very uncertain about the world. I have a deep disappointment in humanity. I've become very head-centred and haven't...
Sorry, so I'm just writing as you say.
Okay,
Yeah?
sorry.
Okay. I have deep disappointment with humanity.
Yeah, I'm very head-centred and I vacated the heart a long time ago.
Yeah.
In this modern world, I consider myself almost an alien. I can only converse with people who have a high intellect and a spiritual connection. I am asocial. I have social phobia. I will not go to pubs, restaurants, bars, go on buses, anything like that in town. I couldn't bear the thought of being in a crowded realm and breathing people's breath. I'm desirous to become much less alienated.
You want to be less alienated?
Yeah. I want to become engaged with the world again. I want to have a relationship with my heart again. And maybe again have a partner in my life. I've been celibate for 12 years.
Yeah. So there's a lot that has went on and is going on.
There's a lot going on, Dr.
Yeah. So it seems like for some reason you're starting to think that things have not gone very well for 12 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, probably all my life, but
Oh, yeah.
I missed one thing out. I was shot by an armed robber in 2010. He came into my house in the early hours of the morning, entered my bedroom and shot me in my bed.
So this was 2010, this was where?
In Ghana.
In Ghana. And you woke up with what was happening?
I woke up because I heard a noise in the living room, and I started to see if I could gauge what that noise was, and the bedroom door started to creak open very, very slowly. And I just laid there, could barely see anything,
Mm.
and not knowing what on earth is going on.
Mm.
I had an argument with my girlfriend that night, and she left, and I thought maybe she'd come back,
Mhm.
but she would never be that courteous
Mm.
to open the door slowly to prevent waking me.
Mm.
So I realised it wasn't her.
Mm.
I then saw a very large figure in the door,
Mm.
and so I launched out of bed
Mm.
to get an extendable baton which I kept on the window
Mhm.
to protect myself.
Mhm.
And as I was launching myself out of bed, a shot rang out, and I felt the pain in here, and I have 24 4mm lead shot in this.
Left arm.
This is my right arm.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Mm. And then what happened?
And so then he said, "Give me the dollar." He was an African,
Mm.
and I told him I never had any money.
Mm.
And so he said, "Give me the dollar, else I'll shoot you again."
Mm.
And so I said, "It's in there,
Mm.
in the living room."
Mm.
So he backed out and he said, "Get it."
Mm.
And then I noticed where he came in the window.
Mm.
It was a 3 foot tall by 2 feet wide window, low.
Mm.
And so I took the opportunity to just dive out the window, because I thought he was going to shoot me again, because I never had any money.
Mm.
And so then, of course, that trauma just escalated into me going into what's called the dark night of the soul,
Mm.
a very deep spiritual depression,
Mm.
which lasted for 7 years.
Mm.
And I'm still a recluse now. Got over
Mm.
the depressive part of it,
Mm.
but still can't function in society.
Mm. So you got out of the depression, but you're still recluse and can't function. And things were relatively better before to this incident?
I would think so.
Yeah. Only you can say.
Since when could it be better? Actually, it's a good question. Since when could it be better? Because since that, I had a spiritual awakening. And so, albeit it was very traumatic, I woke up to many, many things in the world.
Mm.
I became an incessant reader, reading 12 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
every single day, obsessively.
Mm.
And I still do that.
What do you read?
Psychology, philosophy, spirituality, everything. Politics,
Psychology, spirituality, politics,
philosophy.
philosophy. Have you always had interest in reading?
Yeah.
And that became much more since?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I used to read the odd book here and there,
Yeah.
but I was busy living a life in business like most people.
Yeah.
But then it became the main focal point, and that's all I did.
Oh.
And I would fall asleep reading, and as soon as I opened my eyes again, I'd pick up the book again, like there's something I needed to know.
Mm.
And it seemed to me that I went into a great uncertainty in my life.
Can I ask you, Aaron, so after the incident in Ghana, so you said you went into depths of depression.
Mm.
Apart from feeling depressed, did you have any trauma symptoms?
Yeah, back pain. Back pain came about instantly, and it's been with me ever since.
Did you try to jump out of the window? Did that hurt you?
No. I in my life, working in the building, I've damaged my back, like lots of people do. They get a little bit of a tear here and there. But what I've noticed now is that pain now is psychosomatic, and whenever I get stressed, then that comes about, and it puts me in bed very often for 7 days, 10 days. I can't move. I can't even get out of bed to urinate. I can't eat. I can't look after myself. I can't do nothing. And what I've discerned brings this about is when I get compromised by somebody trying to take me out of my safe zone. And that body is the Department of Work and Pensions, because they are always using their usual, it's kind of like bullying tactics, threatening,
So what is your comfort zone?
My comfort zone is being left alone.
And you also don't want to be recluse anymore, want to be social.
Yeah, it's a paradox, but it's not healthy, is it?
Why do you want to be left alone?
Because it causes me stress. When the job centre want me to go out into society, when I have social phobia and I don't enjoy the company of human beings, and I'm not interested in the money facet of it anymore.
And how long have you had this feeling that you don't enjoy being among people or going out?
12 years.
For 12 years, since the incident in Ghana. Okay. And when did you move from Ghana to here?
I left Ghana 4 months after the shooting, and that's when I had a meltdown.
After coming here, yeah?
Yeah. I came back, and temporarily I was staying at my sister's, and I just, having all different sorts of very, very vivid, compromising dreams, bouts of sadness and crying, and just trying to wonder what on earth has happened.
Modes of sadness and crying, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So you came and lived with your sister here, and you had a meltdown. Did you get any help from anyone at the time? How did you manage recovering from it? What did you do that helped you?
Self-therapy, by reading, psychology and philosophy mostly, by walking every day for an hour, forcing myself to go to the gym. I've been to the gym all my life, and so like a soldier, I forced myself to do that.
So you were walking every day, you're going to gym every day, reading for an hour?
Yeah, reading for an hour, reading for 12 hours.
12 hours as well at the time, yeah?
Yeah.
So kind of immersed yourself into things.
Yeah. I considered it was going back into the womb.
Yeah. So after the incident in Ghana, how did that change you? I mean, mental health-wise, what was going on?
It shocked me to the core. It was kind of like the last straw of giving or having any faith in and belief in the benevolent human being. When I was in Ghana for 3 years, every single person I met were liars and deceivers. The police, the lawyers, the doctors. Even when I went to hospital, doctor, and I'm bleeding, and because the hospitals are rubbish in Ghana, I had to wake the night security up in the military hospital. He had to phone a doctor. He came an hour later, and the most important thing to him was filling the form in and getting me to pay, while I'm sitting there bleeding and in pain.
And you didn't have any...
I just had a t-shirt wrapped around, and he was asking me questions, so name, this, that, and so where did he get shot? And I said, do you have any morphine by any chance? What the fuck is this?
So understandably you were getting very upset of what was going on, that you weren't attended to, and eventually I'm assuming that he kind of did the wound care.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And then he took dry towels, kitchen towel, and he rubbed the congealed blood of a hand that had been shot with 24 4mm pellets. And I said, do you have any idea how painful that is? He looked at me, he threw the tissue down, he walked away. Then he wrote out a prescription of all the things I needed and told me to come back the next day at a certain time for an operation. The things on the list were 3 times that was required. Okay. And they do this because they're deceitful.
Okay.
Because it's just about money.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I could understand why it's hard for you to trust.
It's very, very hard, doctor.
Yeah.
And even the girlfriend I was living with, she was trying to sell my property in the end.
Okay.
disgusting human being is for the best part.
Yeah. We'll talk about that, yeah,
Mm.
later. Trying to sell your property. So coming to you, so you moved back to live here with your sister, and you had a mental health breakdown. What I'm thinking about, Aaron, is I know you felt very depressed. Yeah. Do you think at the time you also started to be recluse from people and not see them, speak to them
Yeah,
at the same time?
exactly at the same time.
And before to that, you were social.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that's one. And the third thing I'm thinking about is you started talking about the dreams. In the dreams, what was going on? Were you seeing the same thing that has happened to you, or?
I would wake up with the sound of the shotgun.
Mm.
I would wake up abruptly.
Mm. Okay.
And so I obviously suffer from post-traumatic stress. And in the dreams, I was being compromised and chased, you know, by all different sorts of things, crocodiles and...
Okay. So this is very different to what happened then, yeah?
Yeah.
So compromised and chased by crocodiles.
Crocodiles and people and people attacking me all the time.
Okay. Okay. And during the daytime, I mean, does this still happen to you?
No.
No. When did that stop?
Between maybe 3 and 7 years.
So 3 and 7 years ago, yeah? Okay. So, okay, that's one. Coming back to the daytime, with what happened in Ghana, did that ever come up as a memory or as if it's happening again in the daytime?
I don't get any recurring flashbacks from that. I have done the best I can to accept that that was a positive thing that happened in my life.
What do you mean?
Well, because it sent me into the dark night of the soul, which is a spiritual journey into enlightenment, and I'm happy to have had that experience.
So, sorry, I'm just recording. So it has made you to go into the dark side of the soul.
The dark night of the soul, it's a spiritual term which indicates when people have been greatly traumatized, they retreat into the deepest of depression. And some people come out of it being awoken, enlightened. Other people don't. They'll kill themselves or they'll go on medication. They won't have the benefit of that trauma.
So kind of it has helped you to take that path and come up enlightened.
And to assimilate that and not hold resentment for what had happened.
Okay. So kind of as an outcome, it helped you to grow and be a better person.
In one respect.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So that kind of... Okay. So the social problem, not wanting to socialize with people, that still remains.
Yeah.
So apart from... Okay. So coming back to things that you have said to me in the detail, okay. How can we help you get back into socializing again, you think?
Well, I believe that because of all the incessant reading and knowledge gathering that I've done, it's because I needed to regain stability again. And I have a reflection back when my mother vacated this dimension. I became very aware, and I would notice and study everything, and I just became a very inquiring mind. And since then it's become an obsession, and from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed at midnight every night, I'm learning. I can't speak with anybody, I can't go anywhere without inquiring and finding the answers to everything. And when I walk by trees, I have to look intently at the leaves and the buds and the twigs, and I have to do it on a daily basis to go back to see how they change and all this sort of thing. And I listen to how the birds sing, and I notice they sing very, very different throughout the whole of the year. So I've gone into that space, and it isn't this space, Doctor. this space I don't want to be in.
So you're going back to sort of looking things like leaves, birds and things every day, the same ones. Why do you have to look at them?
Because I want to know. I need to know everything. I want to know. I look at them, how they change. And I want to know how they do that.
Can I just send a reply?
One of the reasons is I think it keeps me grounded. It keeps me present in the present moment. And I suppose I'd derive some sort of security out of that.
Okay. So it's checking the same things again and again. It becomes kind of a more routine?
Well, in my house, of course, with this OCD, I have everything in a very great state of order. And when I go out into the world, I need to try to make some order of it. And if I understand things, then it becomes more orderly. If I don't understand things, then it becomes chaotic.
So you have to understand things. What kind of things do you have to understand?
Everything. I have to. I say understand because I don't understand nobody or nothing. I understand. That's where my comprehension comes from. You could say comprehend, but understand. Understand is something related to law. Do you understand? You stand under somebody's authority, so that's why I don't use that word. So, philosophy, opening up the mind to all knowledge. Psychology, having a deep understanding of your own mind and your own body and other people's.
Have you always been interested in these subjects, or is it only since?
It was since the Dark Night of the Soul. I just had a compulsion that I needed to read psychology and philosophy, and for several years I had no idea why I was doing it. In actual fact, I found it completely boring and pointless, but obsessively I continued, and I continued, never missing a page. And then I would go to second-hand shops and buy all these books.
Okay. So, sorry, coming back to the OCD. So you said like everything in the house has to be in a particular way, in an order. And then outside world also you need to understand. Would you say understand or something else?
Understand.
Understand.
Yes.
Okay. Understand. So that you could make sense of it when it's orderly for you.
Yes.
Otherwise it's chaotic.
Yes.
Yeah. And the OCD things, how long have you had problems with trying to put or keep things in an order?
Ever since then.
Only since then?
Yeah.
Okay. And are you worried about anything that sort of like I'm thinking about now? Sometimes people say they have thoughts coming into their mind even if they don't like it and they can't stop it.
Well, I'm always thinking, and I woke up 2 o'clock this morning anticipating this meeting, and I'm incessantly thinking about the things I need to convey for 2 hours, and to avoid that then I picked up my latest book and I started to read that, which incidentally is Freud, and I read till 7, and then I fell asleep for an hour and then I got back up again. That's basically how my life is, and then I
Okay.
spend all the time in the house, on the internet, listening to documentaries and
Okay.
things like this.
Okay. Are you worried about anything particular that...
I'm worried that I don't know where this is going.
Which one? This interview?
The obsessions.
The
The
obsession.
obsessions. And the extent of the knowledge, and I'm becoming more and more detached.
Yeah. Well, why can you not stop doing that, do you think?
I think it's premised in fear and uncertainty.
Because the knowledge will give you...
Picture this.
Sorry?
Picture this.
Hmm.
This COVID thing that's been going on,
Hmm.
okay? Now, the knowledge that you have about that,
Hmm.
you're sitting there in a mask.
Hmm.
I never wore a mask.
Hmm.
And I haven't had even a cold in 12 years.
Hmm.
What I know about that is completely different to what you know about that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm happy that I know about that, because that has armed me and protected me against the machinations of what's going on in the world.
Okay. No, okay. So, having knowledge is kind of helps you to cope with the uncertainty.
Yes, it's protection, is it? Knowledge is power. I'm empowering myself
Mm.
in a world where people want to manipulate you and deceive you and bully you and extract your energy and your life force.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, tell me about, like, we'll talk about your childhood. Where were you born?
In Leicester?
In Leicester. And brought up in Leicester?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many brothers and sisters you are?
12.
12. 12 siblings, including you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was life for you as a child? Was a big family?
In the children's home for 5 years, moving around from children's home to children's home, sleeping in different beds all the time, and even being moved around from bed to bed in the dormitory whenever they considered it was appropriate. Having different carers, different peers all around.
Yeah. This happened from the age of 4?
4 till 9.
4 till 9. Okay. And then, what about your parents? What happened to them?
Well, one of my parents died, yeah.
When you were 4?
Yeah.
What about Dad?
What about the dad? The dad, well, he remarried, and he took myself, my older brother, my 2 younger sisters
Yeah.
back into a family home, and he went on to have 7 more children.
So you were living with Dad?
Yeah.
From the
And
age
stepmother.
of,
From 9.
From the age of 9. Okay.
In a house where nobody ever mentioned love,
Mm.
and it was very disciplined
Mm.
because there's many of us, and so basically it was like an army camp.
Mm. So you didn't felt ever loved by anyone?
No.
And you mentioned something about problems from childhood. So I'm just wondering what kind of problems you had, or...
In school,
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what happened at school.
well, because every time I went to a school,
Mm.
I was always
Mm.
behind,
Mm.
because I was a new kid joining the school,
Mm.
usually not at the beginning of the term.
Mm.
And so the focus was on me, the new kid in school.
Mm.
And in class, I had no idea what they were talking about.
Because...
I couldn't do the work because I wasn't up to speed with it. I couldn't barely spell, and I couldn't do arithmetic.
Mm. So you weren't academically good then?
Sorry?
Academically, you weren't that good then?
No.
Yeah. What about the other kids? Did you have friends?
I've always had one friend here and there.
Mm-hmm.
One friend.
When you say you had problems at school, did you just mean academical problems, or?
Well, problems with authority.
Mm.
If a child goes to a school mid-term, and that child is expected to do the exams and assessments the same as all the other kids when he's been out of school for a while.
Yeah.
Well, how's that going to fare up?
Yeah.
So I would get allocated into a class, like math, and then the next week I'd be put down to the next class. And then a couple of days later I'd be put down to the next class. Can you imagine how humiliating that is?
So you moved from class to class, and you didn't. Was there any gap in your studies? I mean, any years that you didn't go to school?
Yeah, I was expelled from every school I ever went to, and I was out of school for one whole year almost, on one occasion.
What was the reason for being expelled from school?
Because I wasn't attentive.
Was there any problems with physical fights or?
I suppose that there was scuffles, and I was just unresponsive to teachers and disruptive.
What would you do?
Because I couldn't do the work, then I just sometimes I'd get angry and I'd just snap the pencil in defiance and say, no, I'm not doing that.
Did you ever hit anyone?
Yeah, there's quite a few scuffles, and they invariably were when the alpha males of each school wanted to come to check me out. And so bullying would ensue and I would defend myself.
Yeah. How long did this go on to?
Right up until 15.
Till you left here?
Yeah, till I left schools.
Did you finish your GCSEs or was it before?
No, didn't take anything.
What did you do after leaving school?
I went to Canada for 6 months.
At 16?
17.
17.
16 stroke 17. Yeah, because I had two friends at school, and this particular one, his family were wealthy, and they immigrated to Canada and asked me if I wanted to go for 2 weeks holiday. So I did that, but I ended up staying. We bought a car together, and I rented a room in a house, and so I stayed there for 6 months, and we were cutting lawns and things like that.
For 6 months, and then what happened after that?
Then I came back. Then I got involved with buying and selling cars. Then when I was 20, I went to jail.
For what?
For stealing money.
From who?
From somebody coming out of the bank with wages. And so me and this other friend, we got 3.5 years. And so whilst I was in jail, I just tried to do the best I could to get out as early as I could.
So you were at your best behaviour?
Yeah. And so I got out on the first parole opportunity.
You have to serve the whole 3.5 years?
No, it was 15 months.
15 months, okay. And what happened after that?
Then I started my own landscape garden business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I started a removals firm.
How long did you do the gardening business?
I don't know,
A few years?
a few years, if you could say a few years.
Yeah.
And then I started this removals firm, just starting with an old van.
Mm.
And I started putting an advert in the paper for man and van.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought 2 vans, 3 vans, 4 vans, and in the end I've built up a business where I had 20 people working for me,
Oh, excellent.
and 6 vans, a warehouse.
Mm-hmm. And the business you ran for about
10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
It's quite successful, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very successful.
Mm-hmm.
Then I folded the business because I became a prisoner of it. And
Because your life revolved around it.
yeah, absolutely revolved around it.
Mm.
And I then went to Bulgaria.
How old were you at the time?
40.
40, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I sold the business, about 42, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Bulgaria. I spent 3 years in Bulgaria developing property.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when I went to Ghana and spent 3 years in Ghana
Mm.
developing property.
So in Bulgaria for 3 years and then Ghana for 3 years.
Yeah,
Then when you had a major incident and then you returned home.
yeah.
And ever since then it's been all by yourself.
Yeah.
And, but, do you live in a flat or a house?
I live in the flat,
You
yeah.
live in a flat. And you said you're in a relationship at the moment, or
No, no. I haven't been in a relationship for 12 years.
not for 2 years?
12 years, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you said that she tried to sell your property.
The last one, yes.
The flat, or?
No, I was developing property in Ghana.
Uh-huh.
I was developing property in Bulgaria.
Uh-huh.
Then I went to develop property in Ghana.
Mm-hmm. So that one of the properties in Ghana she was trying to sell
Yeah.
behind you back.
Yeah.
And you came to know of it, and then that
Yeah,
come to an end.
yeah.
Okay, you told me about your quite a few incidents at Ghana where people try to take money
Everybody.
off you. And, yeah,
Everybody.
everybody. Okay, and you've come from that. And you've been in the UK for the last 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been increasingly reading more and more books, no contact with people.
Well, actually, I wasn't in the UK for 12 years.
Mm.
I lived in the Algarve for 3 years
Where is this place, Algarve?
in Portugal.
Okay. So after the Ghana incident, you were in Portugal for 3 years?
Yeah, so what happened is, since the Ghana thing, I came back and I was 2 years waiting to sell that property to get my money back. I got the money back, and then I went back to Bulgaria for 2 years to develop property.
So after the incident, you were still carrying on with the business, and
After the 2 years, I then went over to Ghana to invest. To Bulgaria to invest in something on my own, not having anything to do with anybody unnecessarily. I got ripped off for £22,000 there.
This was when? What year was it? 2010? No, 2012?
2013 maybe.
2013. Do you think because the incident happened in 2010, and then it followed by feeling depressed, do you think by this time you had come out of depression?
No.
And you were still sort of trying to run your business?
I was still trying to do something to get myself out of it.
Yeah. So you went back to Ghana in 2013.
I went to Ghana in I left Ghana in 2010.
Yeah.
So maybe I first went there in 2008. I was going to Ghana and then coming back to Bulgaria because I had a property to sell there. I was still trying to sell it. So I spent the best part of 3 years in Ghana. So then when I left Ghana, so it's confusing, I spent 2 years very deeply depressed. I got the money, I was trying to get myself out of it, so I went back to Bulgaria. I got in financial trouble, I got ripped off and I never made any money. And of course that didn't add to my condition.
This was probably roughly around 2013?
I suppose so, yeah.
In Bulgaria?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ultimately I ended up in Portugal, in the Algarve, for the last 3 years before 2019. So 18, 17, 16, I was in the Algarve.
Okay. What were you doing there?
I was just living off the money I'd got from the property. I was walking on the beach. I used to walk 10, 15 miles every day. Just walking. Never spoke with anybody, never had a relationship with anybody. I had one apartment and I was nurturing myself back by being on the ocean and just being alone.
Okay. Do you think doing those things have helped you to cope?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It helped me come out of my depression, mostly, but, you know, I said to my doctor, I went to see him 2.5 years ago, and I said I'm having an existential crisis because I'm having problems with the world, and then they give you this assessment. Do you feel suicidal? Are you sleeping all day? Do you have an appetite? And all this. And I'm like, look, I operate fine. It's just that I don't want anything to do with this world, with the people world. And living on my own, I can work it through. You know, looking for the answers and being satiated by knowledge, absorbing. And but it you know, it's been 12 years now since I've been alone, and I just think that if I don't try to rectify this now, then probably it's going to get worse.
What will happen, do you think?
I'm becoming more and more detached.
From the world?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Do you drink alcohol, Aaron?
Yeah.
How much a day?
4 cans a day.
4 cans every day?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long that's been the case for?
Since I came back from Portugal.
Which is 2019?
2.5 years, yeah. 2019. I had a hip replacement in 2019, in October 2019.
Here or in Portugal?
Here.
Okay. Was it after an accident or?
No.
Okay. And so how long have you been drinking this much alcohol, 4 cans a day?
Since then.
Since 2019?
Since October 2019.
Okay. Do you do any illicit drugs?
I have taken psychedelics in the past.
Any now?
No.
When was the last time you used them?
Maybe 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay. Are you allergic to any medication?
I don't take medication.
Right, okay. In the past?
I haven't took any medication.
Right.
I mean, I used to take medication for my back, but when you read the stuff, do you suffer from suicidal thoughts? You may have burning of the stomach, you may have bleeding of the eyes. I'm like, I don't think I need that.
Yeah, that's fine, right? And apart from the hip replacement, have you had any physical health problems or?
Recurring issues with the hip because it comes and goes, where sometimes it's very difficult to walk. The back, it seems to flare up twice a year, and when it does, it immobilises me. It's excruciating pain, and I can do nothing but lie down and barely even turn over. And in the past, when I've took medication, it hasn't made any difference to the duration.
Okay. Yeah. And when it comes about, it stays for about 7 or 10 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
In its intensity. After that, tentatively, I get out of bed like I've stood up for the first time, and it's very, very precarious, and I have to be very careful for the next 6 months.
Do you sort of, how do you manage your eating and going to toilet those days when you're in incredible pain?
I can't do that. I urinate into bottles, and I would call on my sister to come round to empty the bottles. I couldn't eat anything because you can't defecate.
You don't eat anything?
No, because I can't defecate. I can't get out of bed.
For 7-10 days you don't eat anything?
Yeah.
How often does it happen?
Twice a year, maybe.
Have you spoken to GP about it?
Yeah.
Do you want to try any medication to help relieve the pain?
I've done very, very thorough research, and I've been to have it x-rayed. I've been had a CAT scan. I've been to see specialists. I've spoke to chiropractors, and none of them know anything really. The last appointment I had was maybe 2 months ago with a specialist, and she's saying now then, the new thing is that you create it yourself. And so I'm like, well, I have a certain allegiance with that, because now I'm sitting here speaking to you about all these things, my back's starting to feel.
When did the pain in the back start?
Maybe when I was about 30 years old, when I was in the building trade.
At the age of 30, yeah?
Yeah, it's very difficult to know, but something I've had it for 30 years now, because it comes and goes, you know.
When did it become very severe and
very serious? As I'm getting older.
You say last 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
How long did you say?
Well, let's just say they're getting more frequent as I get older, and so I had 2 within a year, whereas before then I could go maybe 3 years without having a bad one.
And this has been the case for how many years now?
Now for let's say 5 years.
For last 5 years.
It gets very severe, and that causes me a great amount of terror, because the pain is so excruciating, and I can't move, and it could happen anywhere, and I have to be very, very careful every time I stand up, every time I do anything.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a few more questions, Aaron. I think we probably have to catch up again another time. So there are things that you mentioned about Dad and Mum we couldn't talk about yet. What I'm thinking about is you mentioned about the prison sentence for 15 months. Was that the only time, or have you had any other times you were?
No, never.
No. Okay, that was the only time. Anybody in the family suffers with mental health problems?
Well, mother killed herself, father killed himself.
Did they suffer with mental health problems?
Evidently.
They have a diagnosis of
Depression.
mother.
As far as the mother goes, I've got no idea, but obviously what she was suffering was very bad. Father was depressed for many years.
And he's from Leicester?
He was from Leicester, and he killed himself. And my brother has thought about it, elder brother. He tends to be more like my father, and gets down. And 2 sisters, they've been on psychotropics. So the 3 of my true siblings, they all suffer from states of psychosis, which the girls took medication. The older brother, he hasn't took any medication, but he has like alopecia, he has psoriasis, and you know his depression comes out like that.
Okay. Okay. So, did you say alopecia and psoriasis for one of the brothers? That's one. And psychosis is one of the girls you mean, one of your sisters?
Two of the sisters. They both have bouts of depression where they go on to psychotropics.
Okay, it was depression, not psychosis.
Well, psychosis is a form of depression, isn't it?
They're very different. Sometimes people can experience psychosis in depression, in severe depression.
Right. But they almost breakdowns, non-functional, bedridden.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so they're very severely depressed, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Two of the sisters.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How has, I mean, I'm thinking about that, because you mentioned mum and dad as the first thing. How has losing mum affected you, think?
Well, you know, I touched on this. Losing mother destabilised me and launched me into self-protection mode. And as a result of that, I'm sure I'm still in it. But the things that have happened to me during my life have reiterated it, like the shooting. The level of deception I've experienced in my life, and so now I'm obsessive compulsive in the acquisition of knowledge, and I couldn't bear the thought of doing anything and losing the kind of like the state of control that I have via my knowledge. Particularly in this day and age, Doctor, in all due respect, living in small circles like you do, you wouldn't be aware of what's happening in the world. But I'm aware because I pick eclectically for 10, 12 hours a day from many, many sources, and I know what's going on in the world, and I know who's doing it for the better part.
Who's doing it?
Many people.
Okay.
Many people.
Okay. So we were talking about mum, and losing mum kind of pushed you into a self-protective mode, where yeah. And father, how did losing father affect you?
I'd already lost him through his depression. He was very deeply depressed for 10 years prior to that, and I'd lost a father slowly over that period, and so when he died, it felt maybe like a blessing because he was released from that.
Yeah, okay. Okay. With regards to your mood, what would you think now? Do you think you're depressed or no? Sorry, and it's not easy sometimes to answer. Okay. Shall we try and catch up again when we have the next appointment available? Yeah? Then we could continue with the further assessment, yeah? Okay. So I think the appointments might take anywhere between 6 weeks or so, roughly, and I think we'll sort of continue with where we left today. Yeah, I think there are many more things for me to ask you. What I'm coming to kind of towards, Aaron, it seems to me like the life in general was very difficult for you.
Yeah.
And but we plodded along and made something for yourself. But unfortunately, the major incident seems to have made you into going to these states where it became very limited, the life became very limited, and the intense focus was on trying to get the control back. And that was by means of reading and things like that. So it seems to have affected you as a kind of a person and sort of shaped parts of your personality, and it seems like you're struggling to break free from it. Although it may have helped you to arm yourself and develop the certainty with the knowledge and things, but you are starting to see the negative effects it may have had on your life and things that are slipping away.
And evidently, I'm very confused whether I actually am depressed or not. Maybe I'm putting on a brave face. I seem to be functioning fine-ish. I'm not good with people, and if I'm left alone, then I could continue like I'm continuing.
Yeah.
But if I'm compromised out of where I am, then that would probably be a problem.
If I may, I could see that not able to socialise and live among people is a problem that you have considered and picked those. What do you think we can help you? How can we help you with that, you think?
Well, I believe that I need to be more heart premised, because I've been detached from my heart because of all the because of all the left brain activity that I've been doing, and because the information that I am privy to, it reiterates the negative traits of humanity, with the manipulation, the deception.
So, what did you say about heart, sorry?
I need to be more heart-centred.
Heart-centred, you said? Okay.
Yeah. I need to get back in touch with the heart, so I can then be more comfortable about entering back into society.
And how can we help you get back in touch with heart?
I was hoping you would have the hands here for that.
Okay. So to get back into the society again.
Yeah, because I've been speaking to various therapists, looking for them to offer me therapy, and they haven't, because they said that maybe it's too complex for them.
Okay. Because
but they say that I seem to have a detachment from the heart. It's all mental. It's all a conglomerate of mental activity from a whole broad array of subject matter, and it's taken me away from the human level of empathy and sympathy and compassion and forgiveness.
We'll catch up again in 6 to sort of weeks' time, roughly, when the next appointment can be, and then we'll carry on with the further assessment. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
So just finally, not to take any more of your time, but I think personally I'm looking for somebody to work with me with being more heart-centred, because the head thing, it goes wild.
Yeah.
It goes into realms of quantum physics and the astral world.
So rather than in the level, thoughts, to work more with the feelings.
Yeah. To see if I can gain more tolerance to go back into the world and maybe work again and maybe have a partner again.
Yeah, okay. Now, let's explore it much in detail next time, yeah? Okay, brilliant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.